Lisa here. Welcome back to my channel and welcome to Learn to Read Tarot with me. I am so excited to be recording another video in this series that I really hope is helpful to those of you who are newer to reading tarot or who just like getting in the brain of another tarot reader to kind of see how I put cards together and how I interpret them in a spread. Today we're going to be doing something really fun, but before I get into what we're doing, some important points. If you are brand spanking new to tarot, I definitely recommend that you pause this, come back to it for sure, but start at the beginning of my new to tarot playlist, which I have on my channel, which has the first, well, all 10 lessons of my Tarot with Training Wheels course that I put right up here on YouTube. It's a course that takes you through the entire deck of tarot cards, majors, minors, and court cards, and will teach you a simple single keyword method to get comfortable with the basic meanings of the cards so that you can start to jump into this stuff next where you put it together. If you want something more in-depth than Tarot with Training Wheels, I do have a course up on my website called Tarot Bootcamp for Beginners, which helps you develop quite a few keywords for every single card in the tarot. And it gives you an opportunity to sort of build your own study deck that you can use to get to know the tarot better, to get to know the meanings better in a comprehensive way using correspondences that you have greenlit, right? That you've put your stamp of approval on and said, yes, this correspondence works for me. So we get into colors and numbers and all that kind of stuff in that course. So if you're looking for something more in depth, check out Tarot Bootcamp for Beginners. I will have links to both Tarot with Training Wheels and Tarot Bootcamp for Beginners in the description box down below. So check those out if you want to get in a little more in depth that way. Now, in every video in the Learn to Read Tarot with Me series, I like to break down a specific spread, and I like to keep the spread kind of small. Today we're going to go a little bit bigger than we have in the past. So in the previous videos in this series, I've done 3-card spreads typically. Today we're going to be getting into a 5-card spread that I've recently developed and added to my website for clients. And it is a spread all about inner child work because that was requested as part of this series. So I developed this spread, and I'm going to actually zoom this in. So if you want to screenshot this, you're more than welcome to. I have some lovely stickers by Kitten Chops, who created the Playful Heart Tarot, on this spread card. So the Inner Child Connection spread is a 5-card spread that helps to start a conversation with your inner child, looking at sort of the central issue or core issue that you need to look at with your inner child. What might be blocked for your inner child? What is the fear of your inner child? What does your inner child want? And what do they need? So it's a very basic spread, but one that I think can help kick off inner child work, particularly if you've never done it before and you don't really know what that might look like. This is a very sort of, hi, nice to meet you way to connect with your inner child and get some basic information about how to springboard working with that vulnerable, tender part of yourself. That is the goal. So I'm going to do this spread with you guys today, walk you through it, and show you how I put it together. We'll do at least a couple different sample spreads so you can see how I might put that together. Now, the deck that I've chosen to work with for this is the Happy Tarot, which is a mass market deck that is delightful and wonderful for this kind of work. As you can see, it features really bright artwork, young-looking characters, and just this really bright, buoyant energy. And it seems to me, or the way that I look at this deck, is it feels like the darker cards or the more difficult cards are very apparently difficult. So it doesn't hide the difficulties. Everything just, all the emotions in this deck just feel a little bit bigger and a little more on the surface, which is sort of how I experience my inner child. Like we can really feel the upset and the anxiety in the 9 of Swords here, right? And so that is why I like to use this deck for inner child work. While I do find it kind of comforting if you work with the guidebook, because the guidebook will give you a little bit of a you can find happiness by sort of statement for every single card. It does help you sort of look at the bright side if you're struggling. Well, it does do that. It doesn't shy away from the reality, right? It doesn't shy away from the truth of what's going on. So I really like that about this deck. So I'm going to get into the spread. So again, it's a 5-card spread. Let me zoom out so we have enough room on the table. Hopefully we have enough room. Let's see. Because I need to be able to do 1, 2... Yeah, we'll be fine. Okay, perfect. Let me get shuffling. So we need to name our first querent who wants to do connect to their inner child. So let's call our first client. Let's go Mary. I don't think I've used a Mary yet. Feel free to suggest names down below. I'm no guarantee I'll remember them. But so this first one is going to be for Pretend Mary. Now, of course, if the reading ends up resonating with you, that's completely fine. That happens pretty regularly in these kinds of videos. All right, let's see what is happening with Mary and her inner child. So let's zoom in a bit and we'll talk through these positions. So here we have the very heart of what's going on from an inner child perspective. We have the Six of Swords, which tells me that the inner child is really desiring to be sort of ferried from a difficult or stressful or maybe even semi-traumatic situation into calmer, clearer waters. This tells me that my inner child is sort of reaching out a hand and going, please help, I need help. Because of course, when we look at the Six of Swords, we're often looking at how we're getting ourselves from point A to point B when it comes from going from a difficult situation to a smoother situation. That's inherent in the meaning. But the thing that is always interesting to me is that the Six of Swords has a ferry person, somebody who is ferrying the more vulnerable from one place to the other place. And we see the sunshine ahead. We see shiny light coming from this island in the distance. We know that we're headed towards a good thing. But in this case, because I'm reading for a vulnerable part of self for Mary, I'm saying, okay, Mary, your inner child wants a little help, wants to feel like you've got their back, like you're going to help them get from this stressful situation you've maybe recently been through to something calmer and clearer where there can be room for joy. So that's what I'm going to say, is that there's a lot of like maybe a need for your inner child to feel really held and nurtured that's coming through. So that is really at the heart of what your inner child wants you to know right this second. Like that's the core message. So let's take a look at what the blockage is. So we have the Ace of Cups. So interesting in a blockage, right? Now the Ace of Cups to me is often about that feeling of fulfillment, of finding something that feels really good and emotionally satisfying. So oftentimes to me, if I'm seeing this as something that is blocked, it's like, oh, inner child isn't feeling like they have easy access to joy or to fulfillment, and perhaps are feeling a little neglected. There's a sense of blockage between the inner child and this feeling of incoming, fresh, new joy. And so, okay, inner child's feeling a little cut off from joy. That totally tracks with the Six of Swords, because our Six of Swords is that desire to head towards that, head towards a space where joy is prevalent, right? So there's a feeling of maybe having been a little bit heavy lately, like a lot of the energy for Mary lately has been really heavy, and the inner child is just wanting to get to a place where things feel calmer and where they can invite more joy in. So that's kind of what I'm feeling so far. When we move up to position 3, we have the fear. What is the inner child afraid of? And it's the Queen of Wands. Now, to me, I see the Queen of Wands as an archetype of empowerment, of confidence, of really not being afraid to be seen, be visible, be in the limelight even. And so to me, this tells me that the inner child's feeling vulnerable, has been feeling a little bit cut off from joy, and is really afraid of being too visible or being too exposed. They also are having a really hard time perhaps stepping into a space of confidence. Like they don't maybe feel like they can advocate for themselves. And so for Mary, I might say, you know, the vulnerable part of you has a really hard time asking for help, has a really hard time speaking up and stepping into a place of really being in the truth of who you are. So to me, this, again, totally tracks with the Six of Swords, that desire, that inner child's kind of like, what I really want is to feel like I have somebody who's got my back. I really want to feel like I have help. And sometimes that's really hard to advocate for, because in order to advocate for help, we have to be confident enough to ask for it, to state what we need. And that's kind of what I'm feeling so far from these 3 cards. Now, of course, there's an intuitive layer to what I'm doing here. I'm not just going, Six of Swords is getting away from a bad time, Ace of Cups is joy, and then Queen of Wands is confidence. But I've kind of used those words in a way as a jumping off point for the bigger meaning and the story that I'm seeing unfolding when I look at all the cards together. So again, that's where we're at so far. Let's take a look now over here at position 4, where we see what our inner child wants, and what do we have here but the Two of Cups. Man, this inner child, Mary's inner child, is really seeking human connection, and this really tracks. Again, we have this desire for somebody to kind of help them get over whatever they've been going through lately. We have the Ace of Cups feeling cut off from joy, and again, Ace of Cups is also that like sort of new emotional energy. We're not feeling very confident, right? The inner child's having struggles with confidence, is feeling afraid to be confident or to advocate for themselves. And then the Two of Cups is what they really, really want. They want human connection. They want relationship. Now, here's what's interesting. If we assume that our inner child is vulnerable, they're in a vulnerable space because they're moving away from maybe some recent conflict or some wounds, they're moving away from that, and they're trying to get to smoother waters. They might be really, really wanting human connection right now. They might be really wanting relationships, and they might actually be vulnerable to getting into relationships prematurely because they want this so bad. And when you think of your inner child, think of like the way that a toddler might want something. Or maybe your inner child is a teenager. How does a teenager want something? What does that look like, right? And when you think about it from that perspective, it's like, you can see the danger in that desire, right? And so that's something we want to look at when we're looking at what the inner child wants. And then we go to our final card. But what does the inner child need? Super interesting, because when we look at wants and what is blocked, it's very emotional. When we look over here at what the inner child is afraid of, it's being confident and stepping into power, right? And then when we look at what the inner child actually needs, it's the Ace of Coins or the Ace of Pentacles. Now, the Ace of Coins and the Ace of Pentacles is often about accepting good opportunities that come our way and feeling worthy of them to say yes, right? Now, I've done a bit of a jumping off point here. My favorite keyword, or one of my favorite keywords for the Ace of Coins or Ace of Pentacles, is opportunity. So that was already naturally in the sentence I just said. But because we're looking at what our inner child needs, especially as in opposition to what they might want, because this is kind of what I want to look at. What do they want versus what do they need? We see that there's, as much as the Ace of Cups is blocked, what they need most right now is to be able to say yes when opportunity comes knocking. And that opportunity may not initially be emotional in nature. It may be a lot more practical. It may be that if they get the help that they're seeking, right, they want this fairy person to sort of help guide them. Maybe the guidance that they need right now is to focus in on practical matters first. That might be that the inner child really needs you to focus on your work, Mary, so that you can get really stable and solid in that area of your life, so that you now have room to explore these other things from a place of more confidence, right? But you have to get there first. The Ace of Coins could also be speaking to accepting responsibilities, because Pentacles coin suit, the earthly suit, for me often speaks to responsibilities, not just money and physical objects, but rather the things that we're, in charge of. And so the Ace of Coins indicates taking charge a little bit, taking hold of that responsibility and carrying it. And so if we're struggling with feeling worthy or self-confident, we might be struggling to say yes when we're given a new responsibility. And so the inner child might be struggling with that a little, feeling a little like, man, I'm not up for it. I'm not ready. I'm not good for that. And that responsibility is what can help unlock everything else. If they do this, if they step into the Ace of Coins energy, they're going to have more opportunities to unblock their Ace of Cups, right? To step away from the fear of being confident and actually get into a place of confidence, because they're going to feel more grounded. They're going to feel more, they're going to feel better about themselves. Kind of like, again, let's go back to a children's reference. If you give a toddler a job to do, right? Like maybe it's just emptying the dishwasher or folding some of their own clothing or something like that. I don't know. Do you have toddlers empty the dishwasher? I don't know. I'm a long way from all that. But my point is, you give them a small job and often they can feel really good about themselves, and that can bleed out into all these other areas. So there's a need to really give that vulnerable part of self, for Mary, that responsibility, so that we can start to bolster the self-confidence, and then that we can create opportunities for more of what we want, more emotional connection, more human connection. We create more opportunities for that because we'll be coming at it from a place of confidence, not fear. So that's sort of what I've done there. And again, I know that's a lot of words, but I hope you can kind of get a feeling for how I'm sort of still integrating the basic meanings of the cards, but I'm using it as a jumping off point based on the spread positions to have this conversation with Mary's inner child, or rather to help her have this conversation with her inner child. All right, let's try another one. So same 5 positions. Again, we're looking at the heart, what's blocked, what the fear is, what they want versus what they need. And that's ultimately what is at the heart of this relationship, or excuse me, of this spread. So let's have another querent. This time let's look at Jacob. I don't know, have I used a Jacob before? Okay, so we're going to look at Jacob and see what Jacob's inner child wants him to know. Oh well, if we get reversals because I shuffled weird, we're going to fix them. Because there's no, I like to keep my cards physically upright most of the time. All right, Jacob, or whomever this reading ends up speaking to, let's see how the conversation with your inner child's going to go. So we have the heart, blocked, fear, want, and need. I feel like we're a little, there we go. I want everything on frame. Okay. So right at the heart, we have the 4 of Pentacles. So right now, the inner child is like, I am feeling like I really need to hold on to everything that makes me feel safe and secure. So right now, your inner child is in a space of really, and so the central position, let me back up. Central position, when we're looking at the heart of what is happening in this conversation with the inner child, this is kind of like a snapshot of where your inner child really is in this moment, right? So for Jacob, his inner child is in a space of really wanting to cling on to control to a certain degree, feeling like he has control over his surroundings, really not wanting anybody to challenge that control, and really feeling like he needs to kind of hold everything really close to him, be really safe. So there's a feeling here of a craving for material security, and that can look like holding onto our resources, of course. It can also look like being risk averse, not wanting to take chances right now, not wanting to put oneself out on a ledge, that sort of thing. And so we really get that strong feeling of clinging to security, clinging to what is known, and it's particularly where work, money, and material things are related, and also responsibilities. We don't want to make any big shifts right now. The inner child's like, nope, I just want everything to be the same, and I want to be in charge, and I don't want anything threatening my security. That's sort of the energy coming from Jacob's inner child. Now, what's blocked for Jacob right now? Being that this is where he is, what's blocked? This is so cool. Okay, so we have the judgment card is where Jacob's inner child is blocked. Now, judgment is an invitation to level up your life, right? In judgment, we're being called to do better, to maybe step away from a behavior that isn't serving us or something in our lives that isn't serving us, and to really step into that next step in our life, to really open that door, step through it, and don't look back. Like there's an opportunity to have the next level in one's personal progress in their life, right? Personal growth. And so there's this opportunity for personal growth that is completely blocked because there's this clinging to, no, don't change anything. Like you can even really see the stubborn look on this boy's face in this card, right? There's a real stubborn holding on energy, this like very tight, clingy energy. And then judgment is blocked. So we're not getting the opportunity to level up. Okay, well, if that's blocked, what's the fear? Interesting, because it's the Temperance card. So we really feel this, especially in juxtaposition with the Four of Pentacles or the Four of Coins. The Temperance card is all about moderation, right? It's about getting away from extremes, finding the sweet space where we can blend and mix opposing energies and find the harmony between them. So we're staying away from polar ends of thinking. But in the Four of Coins, we're kind of in that extreme thinking. Why are we so afraid, or why is Jacob's inner child so afraid of finding that place of moderation, of stepping away from that clinging, controlling, everything must stay exactly the same? What is that about? And so we don't really know yet. We can continue the conversation to see where that may be coming from, but there's a real fear that letting go in any way opens up in some way to something going wrong. That's ultimately what we're afraid of. When we're feeling fear, we're afraid because we're worried something's going to go badly, right? And so for him, he really feels if he moves away from this clingy, controlling space of like, everything stays the same, I know exactly what's happening in my day-to-day, we're good, we're not taking any risks, we're not letting anybody in, we're really walled off, but as a result, I won't get hurt, right? And so this tells me that the inner child is in a self-protective mode, right? Really afraid of being in a space to take chances and to moderate that intense energy that he's feeling. So, okay, we've got that kind of picture of where things are at. So next we look at, what does the inner child want? Jacob's inner child wants this picture-perfect 10 of Cups. Okay, now I look at the 10 of Cups and I often see idealized joy. So it's not always what joy really looks like, what a family really looks like, or what true perfect love looks like. Sometimes it comes up that way in a reading, but for me, most of the time, the 10 of Cups is just a little over the top. It's just a little too perfect. It's just a little too storybook and a little too unrealistic sometimes. And so when I see the 10 of Cups, while yes, it's a positive card, I often question where's that view distorted towards perfection when it comes to emotional relationships? And here we have this in Jacob's inner child's want position. So that tells me that Jacob's inner child wants something that's probably not ultimately all that attainable. He wants perfection, and short of perfection, he's not going to take any chances whatsoever. So the inner child is very hung up on wanting this perfect picture, and as a result, nothing will pass muster. Nothing will be good enough. And that feeling of nothing will be good enough is going to keep Jacob's inner child from getting what he wants, or what he needs rather. So in fact, let's look at what he needs. Isn't it interesting how in Jacob's spread here for his inner child, we've got the 10 of Cups as what he wants versus what he actually needs is the 2 of Cups. And if you look at these two cards, look at the difference, right? We have this picture perfect scene here, this perfect little nuclear family, whatever, this little family of birds. I mean, there's practically like song you can hear in this card. Everything is perfect, right? Over in the 2 of Cups, there's play, there's joy, there's messiness, they're baking together, they're laughing. There's a looseness to this energy. There's a little less perfect here. And there's a new, fresh, inviting feeling to this. So what Jacob's inner child really needs, especially when it comes to relating to other people in his life, what Jacob's inner child needs is to recognize that people aren't perfect, and that yes, they're messy, and yes, sometimes things don't go quite right, and maybe when you're interacting with other people, they disappoint you a lot, but maybe they also, if you can just let them in a little bit, maybe they also bring you a lot of laughter and a lot of joy and a lot of room to grow and expand and think differently about the world. And that, to me, feels like if Jacob goes after what he needs, which is letting some of that messy human connection in, he can unblock this wall he has between him and really leveling up his personal growth. But to do that, he has to get out of this space of needing to cling and hold and control everything, of this space of perfectionism. And so my message to Jacob with his inner child connection spread would be very much along the lines of, you need to loosen your grip on life in general. And your inner child really needs you to do that so that you can make these sort of messier human connections, the ones that are going to help you grow and develop and be more of who you really are, really step into that space. The temperance card in the fear needs to be faced. The desire to, or the fear of moving away from extremes in your ways of thinking, moving away from that sort of polarized thinking is really important. Jacob really needs to start looking at the world a little less rigidly and see where he can face his fear of that middle ground. Why is it perfection or nothing? Why is that the case? How can we look at that and really help him to sort of loosen up the energy of his inner child? I hope that helped. I feel like these both went in pretty deep, so I'm going to stop at 2. But I hope you get the idea that a spread like this, and any spread that lets you sort of have a conversation, it's really great because it begins to be this organic thing that you build, right? And when we're looking at any sort of card combinations, right? We ask any question, and this is what I hope you'll pick up on through watching these videos, these Learn to Read Tarot with Me videos, is that you have this opportunity to look at each card individually, but also look at how it's communicating with the cards around it. In the inner child spread, we have that opportunity to look at sort of what's the core, like where are we at now, and how does that relate to what we're seeing in the other positions. When we're looking at something as simple as a past, present, future spread, you can go present. Where are you at? Oh, things look pretty good. You're in authenticity. You're in the sun. Things are great. I know I'm kind of off-roading here, but we're going with it. So things are good. Great. What was in your past? Oh, looks like you've maybe made a commitment to some new way of living. Things have been kind of trucking along. But it looks like you're sort of steamrolling head on towards disappointment. Almost like you're a little too attached to how great everything's been, and you're not really being realistic about your expectations because you're headed right towards the 5 of Cups, which is disappointment or grief or loss. So how can you kind of rein it in a little now, to be able to handle that? And again, all of this is just simply thinking about what each card means and practicing putting together how these things relate to one another and what they're saying to you in any given moment. Now, I will be getting a lot more into my particular reading style when I launch my intuitive reading course, which I am currently working on. I know I've been saying that. It's been a lot because it's kind of hard to create a framework around something that's very flowing for me personally. So it's been really interesting, that process, but I'm making very significant headway. So I hope to have that out soon. If that's something that interests you, keep an eye on the channel because I'll definitely be announcing it here when it is available. So definitely keep your eyes peeled for that. But for now, this has been Learn to Read Tarot with me with the Happy Tarot. I didn't even really lean into the guidebook at all, but that is something that I definitely encourage when you're doing this kind of work and you're starting to get to know the cards, is yes, lean into what you know each card could mean, but don't be afraid to refer to the guidebook and what it says each card can mean to give you that jumping off point, and just go one card at a time and look how it connects to the cards around it. That is ultimately how I do this. So thank you so much for joining me for Learn to Read Tarot with me. I hope this was a useful episode in this series for you. I would love to hear your thoughts and feedback down below, particularly if any of these readings resonated with you or what you took away from that. Would love to hear. And if you have requests for future episodes, types of readings you want me to cover, decks you want to see me use, or different ways of reading you'd like to see me approach, definitely leave that down below. I'll take a look at those requests. I try to keep track of the ones that really jump out at me, so pop those down below in the comments. I would love to hear from you. As always, do click the like button if this was a useful video to you, subscribe, and don't forget to click the notification bell so you're notified of all my future videos. And remember, if you want more content from me, and I know I make a lot, so no pressure, but if you want even more, I do have a channel membership where I make additional content. I have a few different tiers. We call it the Unicorn Fam. It's a lot of fun over there, so if you're interested in becoming a channel supporter, you can check that out in the join link down below or a link in the description box to become a member of the Unicorn Fam. Either of those links will take you to more information about Unicorn Fam membership. As always, I appreciate all of you so, so much, and extra mad gratitude goes out to my Unicorn Fam who helped me do more of all of this. So thank you all so, so much, and may your magic always shine from the inside out. Bye, guys.